So yeah, that was part of the reason for coming down, and another part was Hattie's mother is very different. But this whole time since she passed away in 1920, she was in an unmarked grave. She never had a stone. So we came down there to take care of that, make sure um, the stone was put on her site. So yeah, so it kind of went from there. And then I met you.
And that's really why they moved here. Because of me. Because I said, hey, move here. So, but it's just been a pleasure to kind of hang out with Kevin and just get to meet him. Well, I got a big mouth too, so.
I was going to say that.
All right. So one of the things before we get started, I want to let you know, a lot of the proceeds from the Beauty of Blackness Fine Art Show store is going towards the documentaries that Kevin is doing, and also the silent auction that you see on the other side of the directory. The proceeds from the silent auction is also going to the Hattie McDaniels documentary as well. I was just really excited to be able to do that for Kevin when he sent me he was just asking me for money. And then I was like, hey, let's get everybody in on this. And so I was just really happy to be able to offer that to Kevin. So Kevin, share a little bit about yourself, and then I'm gonna have you share a little bit about Hattie, and then I want you to share about the project.
First, I'm going to say when I asked her for money, she reached in her pocket and pulled out this big wand. And then she stopped and said, no, that's too easy. And so she put it back in her pocket. She said, let's do art show. Yeah, I'm from California, born in Los Angeles. My family on my father's side were McDaniels. It consisted of Hattie, who was my great-grand-aunt, and there were 13 children. Hattie was the youngest. There are other performing siblings, Otis, Sam, and Etta. Now, Etta was my great-grandmother, and she was on the set of the original King Kong back in 1933. And if you look at any film, but not on set, if you look at most films from the classic era of film, black and white movies especially, you'll see Sam in a movie, you'll see Etta, you'll see Hattie. And I remember being a little kid before I really knew about the family history, and I loved those movies even as a little kid, and I would watch them. To find out years later, in most of those films, I was watching my relatives on screen with Humphrey Bogart, Clark Gable, and Katharine Hepburn, and Henry Fonda, and James Cagney. I could go on. And but that's not what spurred me, or maybe it was something that ignited me to be really interested in the arts, because arts are important, as you can see here. Art speaks. It speaks of truth. It speaks energy. It speaks spirit. And when you were a black performer in the 1920s and 30s and 40s, and you had this adversity, you were just trying to survive, just on a human level. You were trying to survive. You're doing this art, whatever category you were in. So when I look at Hattie for an example, because she wasn't the only one, but here's a woman who was in a situation of being marginalized, who couldn't be buried where she wanted to be buried with her peers, who couldn't go to the premiere of her own film in Atlanta, which she ended up winning an Oscar for, who was almost put out of her home because of restrictive covenants by the white neighbors in that area. And of course, she went to court and prevailed. But people ask me sometimes, am I impressed by Hattie and her Oscar being the first black Oscar winner? And I go, I'm more impressed by the fact that she was going through this adversity, but she still had a humanity, she still had compassion, she still threw parties at her house, it didn't matter what color you were. She mentored other young performing up-and-coming actors and just people in general. She entertained the troops through World War II. She raised war bonds for the war effort. I could go on and on. So it speaks to a person's inner courage and integrity that you can be bombarded with negative things, but you rise above it. You don't let it stop your journey, and that's for anybody. If you're going through any kind of adversity, just know if you get back up, it's going to be able to, just work through it. My wife will tell you a lot about that. So yeah, I was born in Los Angeles. I grew up in Texas. And when I was 8 years old, my parents separated. So I didn't really see my father a lot for 10 years. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because in that 10-year period, there was a catty conversation around the house, of course. You know. But as my father and I reconnected after I got out of high school, I started hearing more and more stories about the family history. And I saw how important it was to him. And he took that to his grave. So I picked up where he left off in 2012 when he passed away. And here we are today. We're doing this film. And I do have an announcement to make. I'm not sure if any of you know or some of you know that after Hattie passed away, she left in her will to have her Oscar go to Howard University, one of the HBCUs, which it did. In 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated. It touched off some riots across the U.S. One of the hardest places to be hit was Washington, D.C., where the Oscar was at Howard. Sometime between 68 and 70, the Oscar vanished. It hadn't been seen since to this day, over 50 years. So the Academy contacted me a few days ago and looking to replace it. So that's great to have you. All go for good. And I'll be flying to Washington, D.C. for that ceremony. It'll go back to Howard. I'll tell them to really put a hard hat on it. It wasn't their fault. I mean, no one expects an assassination. So, you're not looking for riots. I mean, that's not something you wait and think it's going to happen. Again, history is important. So, as far as here and now with this film project, I connected with the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame. And what they do is they're a nonprofit, and what they do is they spotlight women who made great contributions to the Colorado area. And I think this is like maybe 200 women, maybe more. And periodically they make films, and they submit it to PBS for Emmy consideration. And they do these films on these amazing women and their contributions. So they inducted Hattie in 2010. I didn't know this. I found out through research. Connected with their nonprofit, communicated with them for 7 years, since 2016. Then we finally moved here, and now we're in pre-production on this film on Hattie. So that's part of this raising funds and things like that. So yeah, we're really excited about that.
So tell us what this means to you. I mean, this is pretty awesome. I mean, even being able to have them reproduce the Academy Award for her, and for you to, because you're taking this journey for someone that you literally have never met, just know about. How does that resonate on the inside of you? I mean, it's like the proudness. Okay, the proudness. I mean, how does that resonate for you as Hattie McDaniel's great grand nephew? What does all of this mean for you?
First, it makes me realize when my mother said I came out of the womb after the food. Now I know where it came from. It came naturally into the blood, kind of thing. But it's been a gift for me. I do this in honor of my father. I do this in honor of Patty and their siblings, parents who were born into slavery. I mean, let's not forget that her father was on a plantation in Virginia, and then he and his brothers and siblings were sold to different places in the U.S. So you never see your siblings. I think about that, and I think the biggest gift for me in this whole journey has been how I do women. I already had a great respect for women. Now I have a huge amount of respect for women because looking through Hattie's journey in life, you realize women get credit for what you do, but you're doing a million things. And you don't always get the recognition of everything you do. And it doesn't mean that men don't make contributions and men don't have these great important things that we do, but when you look at women, how they whole family together. And it's just amazing. So looking at Hattie's life made me appreciate my mother more, because when you're a kid growing up and there are presents around the tree, you have clothes for school, you have food, you take it for granted because you're a kid. You're not thinking about, oh, well, I was busting behind. You know, you're just living your life as a kid. Now you have to go, I was badass. She was a superwoman. And it made me look at all women that way. My sisters, I have 3 daughters, you know, my wife. A lot of what I do, I don't do it without her. You, what you do is amazing. I'm looking at all the women in the audience. All the women in the audience are smiling, but they're nodding because they're like, you're right, he's right. So I can say, I'm right. I'm right. You know, so, you know, working. What is that again?
Said not at home though.
So working on this project where Hattie brings it's a never-ending journey when something feels important. Having the Oscar in place is a great thing. I'm looking more for recognition. Hattie wasn't one-dimensional. Most people hear her name, they go home to me and that's it. But she was in over 300 films. She's credited for about 85 or 90. Between her brother Sam, and sister Hedda, they collectively worked on 1,000 projects and films. But performers don't always get credit for it, even if they're a part of the project. So it's just this never-ending well of information to work on, to bring up, to spotlight, and then it starts to make you think about your own humanity. All of us probably feel we've done things, and it's like, wow, no one noticed. You know? And I think we all should give ourselves applause. Right now, we should all applaud each other. Because, you know, the world is not easy. Getting up, if you get up tomorrow, when we get up today, you should be applauded just to get up sometimes. Every morning I wake up, I say, thank you for waking me up. That's what I start my day off with. I can't have the rest without waking up. And a good friend told me, when you're breathing, just think about it right now, you're breathing. Now, hold your breath in. Well, that air is going to force itself out. That's divine. It's a complex mechanism of the human body. And that's why when you look at a life of a person, whether they were in bondage and hung on a tree, that's a life. So Hattie is a life to me. But I celebrate every person that I meet. I try to have that mindset. I don't care about your color. I don't care about your height. I don't care how much money you have. You're a human being. And she deserved that. She didn't always receive that. But her courage to give back to others, that's a gift to me, because it makes me want to be in that same life.
So that's really nice. I like that. Thank you. So, so I only have 2 more questions because I'm gonna let you guys ask questions. You're an actor and a producer, and Kevin does really fun stuff. He shows it to me, sends it to me on text message when he's in a commercial or something. This guy's hilarious. So how does that, what type of influence do you feel just comes from the fact that you have so many of these people in your family? And I know you weren't directly connected to them, but do you feel that influence? You know, like, because people are always talking about ancestral and things like that. I mean, do you feel connected to them in that way?
I do feel connected to them. You know, we all have spirits. The body is just a house. It's a vessel. So I feel the connection. Someone walked up to me one day and gave me a great compliment. It was a great compliment to me. And they had mentioned Hattie, and then they looked at me and they said, you guys have, it's in the eyes. You have those eyes that she has. And I thought about that. Then I looked at my father's picture and Hattie's pictures, and I looked at the eyes, the window to the soul, as people call it. And yeah, the connection is there, the spiritual, ancestral connection. Um, when when people of color, when black people were taken into slavery and brought over, not just to the U.S., they were spread out to the four corners of the world: South America, Australia, London, France. It was everybody had, most people hadn't had it, but that trauma. And think about this. I heard this from a doctor on a program. She said, "When did those people ever receive any therapy?" Because you can stub your toe and think about it for the rest of the day. But imagine losing family members, rape, murder, for generations, taken away from your home, the culture taken from you, and it passes down for generations. And I've had people say to me, I had a gentleman write me, I did articles for the San Diego Tribune, and the gentleman wrote me and said, "You people need to get over it. You're never going to go anywhere. You're just living." And I didn't get mad, but well, yeah, I did. But I thought that was pretty sad because there's a trauma behind that. If any of you had a family member you've lost, that's trauma. And it wasn't you that passed, it was a family member, but you feel the trauma. So if you have generations of trauma and it's never resolved, it's never talked about, there's no therapy, would it go to the next generation? Of course it would, because you knew what happened. And I thought that was a great point, but it goes right back to why is this important? There are times when I'm speaking this, I get a little choked up. But every family has had some type of trauma on different levels. You, all of us have had a trauma at some point if you're around long enough. So that's why these stories are important. That's why this art's important. I guarantee you, everybody who's created art today created it off of some emotion, off of some spiritual connection. And so when a person has a piece of art, if the price tag says $1 or 50,000, don't look at it go 50,000. Think about what was the message, what was behind that creation, what was the energy and the spirituality that came out of that person to create that art. And that's why I respect all forms of art. I respect every piece of art around me right now, regardless of the size, the price, and the origin of it. And again, when I got with the Colorado Witness Hall of Fame about this project, originally I wasn't going to be a producer on it, but they wanted to interview me for the project. I said, well, I will, but I have to be a producer on it. And I said, the reason why is because I've seen other projects done, and it misses sometimes those little, in the crevices, there are important things that are missed, and I wanted to be able to add that layer to it. But I'm still learning about my family as well, as a lot of us are. A lot of us probably have family members we don't know we have. So when my father was working on Hattie for decades, he was an architect by trade, but he grew up around all these entertainers. But he told me about 1930s and 1940s Los Angeles, when he said, son, when I wanted to go to West Los Angeles from East Los Angeles, I couldn't just go down the street like anyone else, me and my friends. We had to go by the train tracks, because if they saw us, we could be killed. I just thought, oh my God, not to be able to walk down the street because of your parents. And you're 8. It doesn't matter what age. I mean, it's not like you're 30 and you broke a window. Even still, to take a life or to want to take life. And I've experienced these things myself growing up. I've heard the N-word. I've been surrounded by people just walking from the store. Where you going, kid? And I'm looking up like, oh my gosh, So if I went through that, what was Hattie going through? What were people like Hattie going through that? Hattie was less than 30 years removed from slavery himself. Let's think about that. So, yeah, so going back to Hattie, this film, my family, its legacy, its truth. We should never want to suppress the truth of anyone's history. Uh, so that's why I'm here. I would have came here, even if you weren't talking about Hattie, I would have been here. But that's a large part of it. That must be the key. That's like Sandman. You know, he comes out the cane, just like we talked about. It's time to get off the stage. I think it knew I was getting ready to sing and it didn't want me to sing.
I know, I'm not
That's
sure.
not really my thing. So.
What happened? It's making some weird noises. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure. Where's my sound people? People that know sound.
Him.
I can do it back here.
1, 2, 3, 7.
We'll just go with that.
We can shout.
Okay, no, they can hear you.
Really? Really?
There you go. There we go. All right. So, well, the last question that I have for you is, and I want you to share with them because I want them to donate money. How important it is for this film to be made, and how they can go about supporting the film, other than on the silent auction. We're gonna keep pushing that. But how can they go about, and where can they go?
So the Colorado, can you hear me? Yes. The Colorado Women's Hall of Fame. The Colorado Women's Hall of Fame, they have a website. It's CO, like Colorado, greatwomen.org. And there's a spot on that site to donate. If you put a /donate on the end of that URL, it'll go straight to that part of the website. It's amazing. And to add to that, you can pay by check on the site. You can do PayPal, credit card. I think on PayPal, as you mentioned, there's a spot on there where you can add notes, and you want to put Hattie's name in that group because they have several projects going on. So you want to make sure it goes to the correct project. If it's a check, you just write a memo, just put Hattie. But or you can write me at estate@hattieMcDaniel.com. But yeah, if you go to that site, it goes straight to the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame. Production probably won't happen until November, depending on how things are going. The film will be completed prior to around April, May, so that it can be submitted to PBS. The Colorado Women's Hall of Fame have been nominated for, I'm guessing right now, because it changed just recently, over 10 Emmys. They've won about 4 or 5 Emmys so far for their films on women in Colorado. So they're doing great work, and so it's great to connect with them. So yeah, I like the basis for that.
So on Kevin? No.
I want to be heard.
It's very big voice. So we're going to open the floor for questions. You can, if you go to the Tbeauty of Blackness Fine Art Show website, that link is on there. You just click on it. It's a donation. So you can go to the website and find that and make a donation for the Hattie McDaniels Documentary Fund. And like he said, you can always go to the Hattie McDaniels estate website as well to make a donation, which is really excited. Jillian's back there looking. Did I miss something, Jillian? Because you got that look on your face like, Louise, you missed something. Oh,
that lovely young lady with the flowing hair right there, that's my wife, Jillian.
Hi, Jillian.
I love her. She scolds me sometimes.
I love her too.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to open the floor up for questions. So if you have some questions for Kevin, we're going to let you guys answer. See how far my board will reach. So does anyone have a question for Kevin? Oh, back there. Hold on. Very untangled with Kevin. There you go. That means That's good comments.
Kevin, how did Patty the family wind up in Fort Collins?
His question, did everyone hear his question?
Why did Patty wind up in Fort Collins?
Hattie's father was in the Civil War, and he was injured. He had injuries from the Civil War for the rest of his life. But it was debilitating for him. He was probably 50% of what he was at that point, but he was still going out trying to work for the railroads. Imagine this guy, imagine that you have explosives, gunshots to your face. It almost disintegrates part of your jawline to the point where periodically you have teeth and bone coming out, and you don't get medical treatment, and you fight for your pension for over 20 years. You know, that's another story. But he, you know, the family at that point was in Wichita, Kansas, where Patty was born, and he heard from some relatives and friends that there was a lot of promise and things happening in Denver. So they called these people that would migrate for a better life exodusters. So he took his family to Denver, and a portion of that time in Colorado was in Fort Collins. And you know, one of the houses they lived in is still here in Fort Collins. It's on Cherry Street. I don't remember the block number, maybe 370. It's down the street from the Museum of Discovery, walking distance. So yeah, it was basically an opportunity to provide for his family. You know, when he met his wife, Susan, I believe Susan was from Nashville, where my wife was from, and he was working on the railroad at that point. And they got married in Nashville. She already had 2 children at the time from a previous marriage. They got married and had 11 kids, so it was 13 total. So some of those kids died in childbirth, some at an early age from disease. So, you know, it wasn't an easy life. So naturally, he's like, let me find something better for my family. So he went to Denver. But then the kids had this talent. The kids had this talent, and the oldest, he was the oldest child. He went out on his own, started doing vaudeville, tent shows, and then Sam and his brother Sam and then my great grandmother Ella, they went and followed. Patty wanted to go too, but she was too young. But she bugged them a lot, to the point where, you know, they were like, here's a nickel, just go in. But she just warmed down. And she said, Mom, please. It was probably something like that. Please let me go perform with my siblings. And they were like, okay. They finally just said go. So the 4 of them were doing vaudeville and musicals and all kinds of things in this area. There are some photos and old flyers where you can see it, that they were here, they had a presence here. Patty was on KOA radio in Denver for a while, and this is around the 1910s, heading into 1920. At that point, Patty's doing radio. So this is her, kind of like her Denver phase, you know, her Denver life. And this is pre-Hollywood. But I think it was all these experiences built her up for Hollywood. I think the reason why she won the Oscar was because she watched her father not give up, even after being injured in the Civil War. And he's buried out here in Denver too. He has, you know, as well as the brothers. But that's what helped the McDaniels succeed. They were more just as active as the Barrymores, as the Fondas, any of these other families that have gone on for like generations. They don't get the same notoriety because they weren't getting the same type of parts, but they were active. And they were active partly because they were supporting the family, because the father wasn't in great shape. So that, you know, Denver is an important piece of of the McDaniel family life. And one of the reasons why we moved down here, it just felt right to move here, not just to do research and find out more about family, but it felt right. And I felt like, well, maybe I can make a contribution here as well. I just joined the City of Fort Collins Human Relations Commission. I'll be working with them next month, starting next month. I do some stuff with KUNC, volunteer work with them on their advisory committee. So I'm not just here and just like, let me see what I can get out. I mean, I feel community is important, and Hattie was that way as well. A great friend of Hattie's that she went to school with, her name was Ruth Collins, and they went to elementary school together. And some of you may know it used to be called Collimer. It's a store here around, trying to think of the street. But they have a big history, and they say lifelong friends. Even after Hattie went to Hollywood, they wrote letters to each other and stayed in touch. Lifelong friends. So you have Ruth Collimer, this cute little white girl, and Hattie, this cute little black girl. And they're playing marbles, and they're doing their thing, and they're writing letters. I understand these letters still exist. I haven't seen them yet, but the Collimer family, Collimer/the real family are looking for those letters, because I would love to see them.
Wow.
What is a 8-year-old thinking? What are these 2-year-old, 8-year-old girls writing to each other? What are they saying? And then later in life, when they became adults, what's that conversation? And Ruth Collimer would go up to California. Hattie would invite her up to California and so forth. So they were lifelong friends. So yeah, that was kind of long moving things. That's the whole Denver story.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. We can take one more question. Oh, you had a question? Do you have a question? Well, we can take more. He wants you to.
I just want to say I've just been inspired by your talking and just hearing more about Hattie, different things that I didn't know. If you are interested, I would love to do this with you as well. So finding out some different things.
I appreciate that. What's your name?
Thomas. Thomas is definitely one to do it. He is a historical, I call Thomas a historical artist. And I always say that because if there's any research to be done, Thomas will do it. If there's anything to be dug up, Thomas will find it. So does anyone else have questions, or do you want to say anything else?
No, if anyone has some questions.
Did anyone else have questions? Okay.
Hopefully I have the answer.
I'm curious, did anything change for Hattie in Hollywood after she won the Oscar?
That's a good question. I would say yes and no. I mean, of course, her living, her standard of living went up a little. She was making decent money, but her film roles never improved. If you were a Black performer, and you're in a film, you were a butler, a maid. You were kind of like a prop in the film. You were supposed to come off as a subservient individual, almost non-human in the film, like this and no man kind of thing. Don't look up. If you look at Hattie's performances, she doesn't do that. And it's not because she took it on herself. She would get the printed page and go, okay, they want me to do this. And she probably had this thought I have to really work this on this page. So she put extra layers on it. So when you see Hattie's character, she's not going just yes sir, yes ma'am. She's talking back. She's going toe to toe with him. A lot of times she's the bride to go in the room if you look at the film. And that wasn't by design from the producers of the script. She added that. She was freestyling a little bit. And they probably weren't happy about it at first, but then they see the dailies. Because back then, it wasn't digital. You couldn't look at what was just shot right away. You had to go through the process and come back and really look at it. If they would look at the scene and go, oh my God, she's jumping off of the screen. So they left it in. They let her, they wanted that energy. And I always said there were a lot of movies that Hattie was in a scene where she's made, bringing them breakfast. The family's at the table, And the amazing thing is, in those scenes, usually she's the only Oscar winner in the scene. And so think about that. She's the only Oscar, but she's getting the best to do. But she makes the most of it. She's trying to make and she says this in so many words. She's trying to advance opportunity for Black performers at the time. It wasn't a friendly industry for people that were Hispanic and Native American, Asian. You got parts which you were kind of put in a particular light. You were painted a certain way because the Hollywood powers that be felt that's the way you should come off. And that's not the true reality. Hattie was incredibly bright, adventurous. She spoke her mind. She had a quote. She had several quotes, but one of my favorite quotes of Hattie is, I had a brain freeze for that. The Black person's, faith is the Black person's Federal Reserve System. And when I first read it, I had to read it again. I said, faith is the Black person's Federal Reserve System. And I was like, okay, if you don't have anything, if you're discriminated against, you don't have money, maybe you don't have material wealth, possessions, land, but you have faith. That's what gets someone like Hattie through what she was going through. Otherwise, you would jump out of the window because you would see such horrific stuff that you had to have faith. You just couldn't. If you were a Black performer, you couldn't get through. You couldn't survive without it because you didn't have, this wealth to lean on. You didn't have property. You didn't, you didn't have certain things because of who you were. So her faith was very important to her. Yeah, but to answer your question, yeah, her roles kind of did this. It didn't. Usually, you get an Oscar, all these scripts start coming across your table, and you kind of like your pick. You have a little more choice, but it was like a flat line, and she just did the best she could with what she received, and she received some criticism for playing those roles. But you have to remember, this is a Black woman in 1930 that wasn't sitting at the table, wasn't able to make decisions. I mean, would she like to be in the film as the leading actress opposite Clark Gable? Sure, they were great friends. There were 3 movies together. But that wasn't the reality at that point. So what she did was important. She bit the bullet. She knew she was walking into the lion's den. You have 2 types of people: those who fight from the outside and those who fight on the inside. They're both important. Oscar Michaud, who made Black films, very important. He did his work on the outside. Hattie Daniel, as an example, she did her work on the inside. I think you need both. A 2-pronged attack, if you want to call it that, and it opened up the door for the possibility to have other people say, yes, they're capable. So that opened up the door for Sidney Poitier. He was the second Black performer with an Oscar, almost 30 years later.
Kevin, I think it's interesting. Thank you guys. I was gonna say one of my favorite lines that Hattie had, because I know she had some serious difficulties, not just with the Hollywood community, but the NAACP, some of her own members of her own culture. And one of the things that I remember, the one that I liked was that she said that she'd rather play a maid and make $900 than be a maid for $7 or something like that, right? It's
700
right,
versus
$700 versus $7. And I thought, right on. I would have been out there, I would have been right there with her because that made no sense to me. So one of the other things was when you were talking about how her roles had flatlined, a a lot of it was due to the industry. She was owned by a particular movie, like studio, and they had loaned her out once, and she did phenomenal. It was a series role, and then but they wanted to keep her in that Bambi sort of role, so they wouldn't lend her out anymore. They wouldn't lend her out anymore.
Yeah, that happened a lot. Sometimes in the studio system, if you were under MGM, for example, you had to get permission to go work on a film for another studio. So, yeah, I mean, to be in that position on top of not a lot of options as far as the roles you can receive, that makes it even harder. So, but now remember, she was a domestic. She did domestic jobs in her life. She actually knew that girl. She cleaned for it. She cleaned. She cooked. So she was coming from a place of authenticity. And people will say that Monica Wayne is a troubling film, the way it depicts. It's kind of like kind of sweeping under the rug, kind of a look at slavery, and it does. I still think it's important though because there's life lessons in it. I rather know than not know. I rather see good or bad than not see. Because then I grow as a person. I learn. Anytime you can learn, whether it's something that makes you cringe or something that makes you leap for joy, it's still a learning lesson. It's still something you can grow from. So that's how I look at it. So I don't look at Clark Gable. I mean, that's a no-brainer. It's Clark Gable, right? But he understood. Clark Gable was his own man. I always give him credit because there were some things he did in regards to black people that some people don't know. I mean, he fought for people on the set. Like on the Gone with the Wind set, they had restrooms for black people and restrooms for white. And someone went to Clark Gable and pointed it out, and Clark Gable went to production and said, "We're all using the same bathroom before I'm walking off the set." I have great respect for that man. Say that because he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to. And every time Hattie had something at her home, he was there. And when she wasn't invited to the premiere in Atlanta, he says, "I'm not going." And she basically had to twist his arm and say, "You have to go. It's your film." See, she didn't say, "Oh, kids, they don't like it." No, she said, "Clark, you have to go. It's your film. You need to go." So he went, but he didn't want to go because they didn't invite another black cast member. So there's right and there's wrong, and you can't straddle the fence of right and wrong. And Clark Gable knew that. So, but not everybody knew that. Not everybody treated the same way, but I think most of the people Hattie worked with, I mean, she had a lot of lifelong friends. She was greatly respected. It didn't change her circumstances because those people that really respected her were making decisions on the film. But she fought through, and that's the impressive thing about it. It's an example for me and I think for other people. That's why the film is important. To tell the story that you had earlier, because I want to make sure that's known. We all get put in strange boxes or situations. We can complain. It's okay. We have a right to do it. But get up and do something. It might not benefit you, but what you do may benefit the next person, the next generation. And that was her mindset. I might not benefit from what I'm doing right now in the way that I would like to, but it benefited Sidney 48 down the road because he was able to get better quality roles, and it benefited other performers like Viola Davis. I mean, it all goes back, but it's Hattie and everyone from that era. It's not just her, but there are other people that were there with her that were going through the same thing, and they're really important too.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank Kevin for real this time. Thank you. Thank you guys for coming and being a part of this. This means so guys came to listen to Kevin, to hear about the story, to hear about the documentary. So, like I said, we do have a silent auction going on that will be benefiting the Hattie McDaniels documentary. Anything that's bought out of the store, percentage of that also goes to the Hattie McDaniels Fund as well. So please stick around, look at some of the artwork, enjoy the artists that are here. They have some amazing work. Pick up some nice stuff for your home because they would appreciate it and I would too. That's why I bring them here so that you can come and enjoy some of the Black artists' artwork. So definitely come and buy some stuff. And we do have some refreshments over on this side. So feel free to eat some of that so I don't have to take it all home. And Kevin is going to hang around. So if you guys want to chat with him and you think about a question that you had that you didn't get out, you can hang out and help him for a little while. So thank you guys.
Just wonderful. That was awesome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I was putting from your energy. Go, sir. I didn't know that part. I mean, I'll find out something next week. Yeah, I'll find out. Yeah, I wish I could be in the mindset to see what was. It had to be something. Cookie. Really fast. Yeah, I was watching. I can't find it. Must be black female rocker. But she was
Smashed her nose on something. Jolene showed me
really good.
her eyes. And it's like swollen pockets of blood.
Yes, really good
And
presentation.
she's smiling. She did all the pictures that she shared. She's smiling. She's got that out. All five of us here. So that's too. I worry about Faith because she's going to have 3 parents and she's the only child. Oh yeah. What an interesting idea. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have this name. Yeah, we were yeah, we were out there. I was researching. I mean,
Yeah. Great. That would be very cool. Very everything's on. Yeah, and
That's kind of been history.
Yeah, I mean, watching my father, I mean, there's things like that he was doing. So he was really kind of, so he was basically, but how much he was doing gives us and it helps that she had this particular life. That is really research.
Yeah, so these are so this is like there's a lot of shows.
I was you were coming around actually others there. So I took care of her. The father was so that was the mission. I went through down there and she got we went so I said to him, I said, this is my wife last time. I said, so I told her, she said, so I was thinking about the thing. I said, the perfect time. Yeah, it's the perfect time to come. Okay. On my birthday, we had a good time. Hattie's just a Judy Martin's birthday. I I'm Rushmore June.
Now we know. Oh, 6.
Hey, that's not we came down here. We're California.
Oh, I love that banana. Girl, take that banana home. Who liked the banana? Do not outbid me. Oh, I'm running over there. What you?
I hear the whole